Right.
Okay. So anyhow, you guys, tonight I am so excited to have Jaylene on the call. She is a friend of mine. I don't know when the first time that we met, but we kind of met, I think, through maybe some events through Beachbody. And she just always has captivated. She is an amazing storyteller. I tell her that. Like, you go to her page and it's like you're on the edge of your seat and you're like waiting for her next post, because it's like the next chapter is going to be revealed of these stories that are happening in her life. And I think it's a gift, to be honest with you, how you share that. And I just have been, I see her, she's super successful, but she's pretty down to earth whenever I see her in person. And so I love connecting with other moms. I love connecting with other people that run this business on their terms, on things that are going on in their life. And it's going to be an exciting call that we can share with our teams and share once the recording is up and rewatch this. So let me introduce her real quick. Like I said, she's a friend. She's a Beachbody coach. I think I'll let her tell you how long she's been doing this. I know it's probably shorter than me. But she's a 6-star diamond. She's a 2-star, a 2-time elite.
Tienes una llamada.
Whoa.
Sorry, guys.
It's okay. We love you.
That was my daughter.
That's funny. Okay. If you're not muted, mute yourself. I can mute you.
Thank you.
No problem. Mute all. And then we'll unmute Jaylene. Okay. There we go. Ranked number 51 in the company in 2017, you guys. And I will tell you this, that something about Jaylene that I noticed is that she's not only really a nice person, she's a hustler. She's really good at the business side of things. Like, she has a lot of successful coaches on her team, and she has a pretty good tight-knit community. And I'm really excited to have her share kind of some things that's been happening in her life in the last couple years, or maybe this last year. I think it was last year. And okay, now get this. This is the best title. She's a mom of 4 and she's pregnant again. Yeah. And that always blows my mind, because I'm like, I have 3 and I'm like, oh my gosh. But I think she just said she's 11 weeks pregnant. And so you guys are going to be blown away. Get your notes out or listening caps on. She's going to share with us a little bit about the vital behaviors and how that kind of apply to your regular life. And I think you're just going to be so excited. So Jillian, we're so excited to have you. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. Okay. So, I have a slideshow. It keeps me on track because I could talk for hours. So I'm actually going to pull up my slideshow real quick. And, freak, hold on. What am I doing? Okay. So you guys can see my slide? Yes? Okay. So I have been coaching for 3 years this month is when I started. And 2 of those years was elite. I actually went elite my first year as a coach. And then I just took a year off. I kind of just got comfortable with where we were. It was it completely changed our lives. So it was significant enough that I got comfortable for a year, and I quit doing a lot of the vitals. And at the end of last year, I was like, this is bullcrap. I thought I hit Premier, didn't even hit Premier. I was like, what the freak just happened to me? I go from elite my first year to nothing. That is unacceptable. And so it kind of lit a fire in my pants. And so we really hustled this last year and we hit elite again. And so I'm going to kind of walk you through this last year and really talk about how the vitals for the business are actually vitals for life, and how leaning into the biz actually helps you through the hard times in life. So we are just going to get started. So the first thing I want to talk about is, you guys, life will happen and it will be hard. Okay. I've seen way too many coaches step back or walk away from the business when life is hard, because they see the business as an extra rather than essential. And it drives me nuts half the time, because I'm like, you guys, your life didn't get better. The trials didn't disappear. And it's something that I think the vitals actually help you through those hard times by giving you perspective. So that's why I want to talk a lot about that. Is I don't want to sound like a Debbie Downer. I'm naturally an optimist, but life will happen. Like something is going to happen during your course of being a coach that is going to challenge you, that is going to actually make you decide, do I really want this? Is this a priority? Am I going to step back or am I going to lean in? Like you will have that happen. Okay. And so I saw these quotes and I thought they were good. So I wanted to read them. So you must tell yourself, no matter how hard it is or how hard it gets, I'm going to make it. Remember that life's greatest lessons are usually learned at the worst times and from the worst mistakes. And it ain't how hard you hit. It's about how hard you can get hit and keep moving forward. How much you can take and keep moving forward. That's how winning is done. Okay, so I want you guys to be thinking about that as we like go through this. And maybe it's just little for you right now. Maybe it's massive and you're totally doubting and you're guessing or wondering if you can do this. But I really want you to think about how this can apply to your life right now and just kind of be prepared. Have this in your brain of what you're going to do if life is fabulous right now. Okay, so I don't want you to be like, this doesn't apply to me. Just trust me, it will at some point. So I want you to kind of really let this soak in. Okay, so oh dear, hold up, it got mad at me. Okay, so our story in 2017. So like I said, we kind of got really frustrated with where we ended up in 2016. So we started out crazy hardcore running. And honestly, it was just doing the vitals again instead of just slacking and being content. Which even slacking, I still hit Success Club 10 and all of that. So it wasn't like I just went MIA. That's all I did was the bare minimum. And so we started out January and we just took off, and we were living in a house we love. My husband, we had moved away for a year he's a police officer, and we moved to be closer to family. It had better long-term benefits, and it was a nightmare. So we moved back to his first original department, and he loves it. It's a fabulous department. So we had just moved back. We were in a house we love. We have let some yard for the kids, and we were able to go to Punta Cana. So life was becoming amazing and what we wanted and always dreamed of. And so like I mentioned, he was back at his job that he loves. And by May, our team was actually ranked number 20. And that was holy crap, going from nothing to 20 was just exciting. Life was amazing. So we were actually selected for the Shift Shop test group, and we were actually in the best shape of our lives. This was after 4 kids. I've never had tone and muscle. I was a dancer growing up, but I of course didn't know how to eat right. So I wasn't ever heavy, but I wasn't ever fit, if that makes sense. And so this was awesome. Best shape of our lives. And it just was fun because my husband was actually selected too, because he's a coach. And so we were able to do it together, and it was just it was fun. It was super fun. We spent a ton of time as family. We got to do things that we hadn't ever done before because of the business. We were able to travel to places we'd never been. We were able to get season passes to our local amusement park. We were just soaking up everything. Seriously, I don't think we had any complaints at the beginning of last year, which probably should have been a sign that something was in the pipeline. So we actually traveled a lot with our friends. That's my coach, Micah Folsom. She's very on the fly. We're very on the fly. So we took a ton of random little trips. Hey, you want to go here? And we'd go there. And so we got to see and experience new places as a family. And for me, that's one of my biggest goals with the business is to be able to give my kids experiences and for them to travel the world. And so this was once again, just a super, super awesome summer. At the end of July, 1st of August, we found out we were pregnant with number 5. And super thrilled. I was in the best shape of my life, like I mentioned. So I was really excited to actually go through a pregnancy healthy because I had never done that. I didn't know how to eat correctly with the other 4. I didn't care. I didn't gain a ton of weight while pregnant, but nursing was a whole nother ball game. And so this was the first time I was actually in shape. So I lost 40 pounds with Beachbody in 10 pant sizes. And I actually ended up the same size after all first 3 kids. And I couldn't lose the baby weight from nursing. It was really weird. So I lost all of that after baby number 4, started number 5, best shape of my life, super stoked. And then come September, the Super Saturday in September, I've always had on my vision board that I wanted speak at events and stuff. And I was sharing our transformation story and something that, is very obviously near and dear to me, and it completely changed our lives. And you guys are seeing like the good, but the before was we were living less than paycheck to paycheck. My mom had to subsidize us $300 a month just to pay our bills. We literally had $120 between paychecks for gas, groceries, toiletries, anything besides the basic bills came from that $120 a month, or $120 every 2 weeks or whatever. So that was life before Beachbody. Very stressed. Our marriage was like in shambles. I was frustrated, negative, bitter, and overweight. So Beachbody completely changed that. We have financial freedom more than we've ever had before. We're living in a home we never would have been able to afford. We're driving a car we never would have been able to afford. We've given our kids experiences. It's completely transformed our marriage and all that. And so I was able to share that story. And it was actually at an event that Tony Horton was at in Salt Lake City. So it was like super, just like an awesome day. My family got to come. My daughter actually did the entire workout with Tony. I was like so proud of her. She was in there in the mix of all the people, and she actually has Asperger's. And so to see her doing that was like, oh, like this business is awesome. And this is where like I'm going to turn into a mess. We actually had a diamond retreat at the same time of this Super Saturday weekend. And the morning of the event, I messaged my husband. We don't live too far from where we were having the retreat. And I said, why don't you come back to the retreat house with us? Micah's husband was going to stay that night. And so we did spur of the moment. The kids and my husband came back to the retreat house, and we had like a mini vacation. And it was those moments that I loved. And little did I know, our lives were about to completely flip upside down. 5 days later, I got the worst phone call of my life. My husband had just gone to work about 2 hours before. And he called me, and I was sitting on the couch ready to make an awesome post. And I'd actually just gotten ready for the day, which I'm grateful for now. I'm kind of vain like that with what was about to happen. Anyway, my husband, I answered the phone, and he kind of hesitated to say something. And so I was like, hey. And he just said, hey, I'm okay. And that's when I was like, holy shiz, something is not okay. That's not something you say if you're okay. And he said, I said, okay. And he said, so-and-so is on their way to pick you up right now. Okay, you never want to be picked up by another officer. That means something seriously bad has happened. So at this point, I'm like hyperventilating. I'm not an anxious person, never had panic attacks before. And I'm like legit having a hard time to breathe. So I'm holding my breath so I don't sound like a hysterical mess. And I'm like, are you sure you're okay? And he's like, yes, I'm fine. And at the time, like this whole thing is under investigation. So he can't really say anything to me over the phone. I don't know what's going on. And he just says, my face is hurt and my ankle is hurt, but I'm okay. I was like, okay, have no idea what happened. He just said I got in a fight. Well, then he sends me a link 5 seconds later, and he was involved in a shooting. And so then at this point, I'm freaking out. I have no idea if he's been shot. I don't know what's happened. I just know his face is hurt, his ankle is hurt. I assumed he wasn't shot because he probably would have told me that. I actually have a homeschool helper. That is something I forgot to mention. I was able to hire because of the business. We homeschool our kids. Husband's crazy schedule. It works for our lifestyle. And she was here, thankfully. So she heard me kind of being hysterical. I went into the homeschool room. I couldn't even talk. She sat me down on my bed, and I was like, Greg's been hurt. And she said, okay, go. I've got the kids, just go. And so my kids, poor kids, saw me like having an anxiety attack, but thank goodness she was there because she was able to like scoop them up and distract them as I slipped out and waited for the officer to come pick me up. And this officer is someone, she's actually in this picture. She's right here. I don't know if you can see my mouse, but she is someone I know personally. And so that was something my husband and I always talked about. If something happened, I wanted someone I know to come to my door. I was like, if I end up with just a freaking knock at the door by the chief, like I will lose it. Cause no, I want to be warned beforehand. So luckily my husband was enough aware that he knew if he called me, that would help calm me down a little bit. And so he sent her to come pick me up because I knew her. As soon as they got here, the deputy chief walked out of the car too. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is way more serious than I even was anticipating. They couldn't tell me anything. I may have sworn at the deputy chief, like, what the hell? You can't even tell me anything. Like, this is ridiculous. We rushed off to the hospital. And this is what I walked into. So his face was covered in blood. And he was like, you can see the daze in his eyes. Like he was not there. He was very, very just in a fog, in like that shock. He had to have a CT scan, x-rays, and they quickly cleared the room so that he could talk to me. Luckily, as spouses, I have privilege and he can tell me what happened, but like he technically couldn't talk about anything until the investigation was over, which is another story for another day. And it was terrifying, just what he was trying to describe. We have no doubt he was protected that day. Long story short, a guy attacked him, got a hold of his baton and was beating him over the head with it. Luckily, my husband was able to kick him away and run on a broken ankle, but running away is what saved him. His backup officer arrived, and the guy turned on the backup officer, and the backup officer had to shoot him 10 times before he stopped. And so that guy obviously died. So now you add in not just trauma, we have the stress of an actual investigation. And I think a lot of people don't understand what that is, but police officers, when they're involved in this, are actually put into a criminal investigation until proven innocent. So it's considered a homicide. And he was put on medical leave, but the media, it really sucks. And we had to instantly go into like protection mode. We had to completely shut down his Facebook. We had to change his name on Facebook before we reopened it up a few days later. I had to scrub my entire Facebook of his name. My assistant had to like change everywhere I mentioned the name Greg. She had to change to my hubby. I had to then tell my story only to friends only. I couldn't share any of this publicly. As soon as the media releases it, you'll have people who will show up at your door. This person in particular was a part of a gang, so we were fearful of retaliation. We went into extreme paranoia, both of us. Trauma does weird, crazy crap to you that you wouldn't expect. And like we were scared of our own shadows. I couldn't leave him. I had major separation anxiety. I wasn't sleeping. Mind you, I was 11 weeks pregnant. I had the worst headache from crying. My kids were fearful. They weren't sleeping. Like we were just a hot mess. But luckily, my mom, she knows me. She came up as soon as like I texted that something was wrong. So she was here for the full weekend. This happened on a Thursday. She stayed till Sunday. Basically fed us. You lose all function as a human being when trauma happens like this. And we just tried to basically get out of the fog. And on Tuesday, the next Tuesday, I had a midwife appointment. She came to my house and they couldn't find the heartbeat of the baby. So I was so bitter because my husband's so injured he couldn't leave the house. We had to have an ultrasound to verify. So my sister drove down and that ultrasound was like the worst experience ever. So the baby had passed. My husband wasn't there with me. And now I had to go through the process of a miscarriage on top of all of this. And I legit shut down at this point. Like I couldn't even function. And as we waited for the baby to pass, we decided to let the baby pass naturally because remember separation anxiety and paranoid. I couldn't be separated from him for a surgery. He couldn't go anywhere anyway because of the situation. He was still very injured and very beat up looking. And so we decided to let the baby pass naturally to give me time to process and all of that. And in that week, after we found out the news of the baby passing, we had doctor's appointments, trauma counseling appointments, investigation interviews, and more doctor appointments. And like our schedule was all of a sudden way more full than it was ever before. And it was very, very stressful. My husband had to watch his body cam footage that week, and that was hard. So that brought up more stuff. So basically we were just very barely surviving, essentially, like just breathing. My mom obviously came right back up because she's a saint, and This was a Tuesday. I found out the baby had passed, and she stayed all the way till Sunday again, once again, taking care of everything. And I still hadn't passed the baby. It was about a week after my mom left. So a week and a half after we found out the baby had passed, I started to spot. And I was very angry that I had to go through this. Like, it's bad enough that your baby dies. Now we have to like pass the baby. Like, that's just torture. And then you add on my husband, like I just can't even explain mentally like where we were. I started to, I woke up at about 3:30 in the morning to just feeling really weird. I didn't have cramps or anything. And as soon as I stood up, there was a gush. And I sat on the toilet and it would not stop. And so I called my husband, and he, just looking at me like it looked like a bloodbath, he was like, mind you, he's hobbling around. He's still so injured. We actually just gotten him a peg leg. I don't know if you guys have seen those, but they're freaking awesome. If you ever break your like ankle or leg, get a peg leg. He had just gotten one of those. So he hobbled into the bathroom and he was like, you need to call your midwife. I had been texting her. You need to call her because you need to make sure you're not losing too much blood. So I called her, and she was like, as long as you know you're not passing out, she's like, just pay very like close attention to passing out signs. So getting lightheaded, tunnel vision, getting really flushed, soaking up, so many pads an hour. I'm like, dude, I'm sitting on the toilet. I have no idea, but it's a lot. And I'm like, but I feel fine. She's like, okay. And as soon as we got off the phone, my vision started to go into a tunnel. And so, I immediately texted her, and she called me right back, and she's like, lay on the floor and get on your left side, put your feet above your head. My husband is like, I'm calling 911. Like, he couldn't even drive me to the hospital at this point. So we had no other option but to have an ambulance come and pick me up. And the placenta was caught in my cervix. I actually passed the baby on the way to the hospital in one of the clots. And we were able to save the baby. Sounds really weird, but it was like closure for me because I got to see him, and he was perfect. He had 10 fingers and 10 toes and a nose and a mouth. And I was able to like have that closure of seeing him, but they had to do an emergency D&C to get the placenta out of my cervix so that I'd stop hemorrhaging. And so we were in the whirlwind now of, I've lost so much blood, I can barely stand up, have emergency surgery, a miscarriage, and my husband's attack all in 3 weeks. And when my husband's attack first happened, I remember texting my coach, and I'm like, I don't know what to do. She's like, you don't need to go balls to the wall all the time. Like, it's okay to step back in the business for this very reason. This is why you have the business, to focus on your family. So figure out your non-negotiables and make it happen. And so for me, Success Club 10 has always been a non-negotiable. And so this is now mid-October, and I'm like, I got no idea how I'm going to even do this. I'm not even functioning as a human being. And on top of that, we had to help our kids process everything. So this is not just affecting me and my husband. Obviously, we've got children. And this picture on the left is actually from the day we should have been flying to London for the UK launch. We actually had to take our children to trauma counseling instead. So I was like, oh my gosh, is this not the most, I don't know, like interesting swap? But at the same time, we were very grateful because we were able to cancel. We had amazing friends who helped us get a refund fully for our flights. And then we also had the ability to take our kids to trauma counseling because of the income of Beachbody. I didn't have to wait for insurance approval. I was able to get them in immediately. And so that was a huge blessing for us. And my husband's actually at his first day of work since the incident. Today is the first day he's back to work. And my kids, all of them were like, I just don't want you to get hurt. He's actually just on desk duty, so we're a little okay. But it's crazy how much this still impacts them. And this picture in particular, we were dropping off our dog to a boarding place on our way to leadership in November. And my husband knew the owner from the town we grew up in. And so, of course, they wanted to chat. And so we were stuck in there for a little bit longer than we anticipated. And we came out to the truck where our kids were sitting. And my daughter like lost it. She was like, I thought something happened to you because you guys were gone for so long. So my kids had paranoia and fear and anxiety and anger. And it was just a lot to take in. And then I was still trying to figure out how I was going to balance all of this. My hubby obviously had to endure physical and mental injuries. He still has a broken fibula. It's 4 months later and he's now getting additional therapy and stuff to try and heal it without surgery. He had to have a nose job because his nose did not heal correctly and it was very, very off. And so it was very, very frustrating as a wife to watch this and figure out how to keep life going in a good way, and as well as the business. We had great moments as well. We on December 18th, I found out we were pregnant again. Did not expect that to happen so fast. And so that was a huge blessing for us. I was absolutely terrified, to be honest, because today is 11 weeks when the baby died last time. So I'm like trying to be a normal human being that doesn't like freak out over it. But it was very exciting for the kids. And we got them a little onesie that just said, playing with Nilsson. We named our baby Nilsson. Playing with Nilsson in heaven until I can play with you on earth. And so it was a Christmas present we got them to let them open, and they're obviously ecstatic. And my poor little 3-year-old boy asked my husband the other day if babies live outside of mommy's bellies. So it's really sad to see how much actually affects kids more than we realize. But the beginning of January, we were actually able to take our family to Disneyland. And I was able to do that with 1 week's paycheck from Beachbody. And that is something we used to have to pay for our tax return. So this business was blessing us in the midst of all these trials. And on top of that, we had amazing community support. I had coaches dropping off dinners and gifts and all that stuff. And it was something that we're going to talk about when I talk about the vitals. But it's something that like really, really, really held us up during our time of need. And it's something that I can imagine us having to get through without having the business. And so before I tell you the vitals, how the vitals of the business help you through trials, answer these questions for me in your head. Would walking away from the business have taken away any of my trials? Would that have made my husband's injuries go away? Would that have made my miscarriage go away? Does walking away from the business and the vitals make your trials disappear? It doesn't. We all know that. Does walking away from self-care make a trial easier to handle? Okay. So how do we make it through and still run a biz? Okay. The vitals are for the biz. The vitals for the biz are also vitals for life. So step number 1 is being a product of the product. Guess what helps your body process and handle extra stress? Working out and eating correctly. And on top of that, Shakeology. I don't know if you guys are familiar with like all the awesomeness of Shakeology and all the ingredients, but adaptogens are extremely important, especially during stress. So I was actually put on an additional adaptogen supplement when all of this was happening. And it actually was the first time my blood pressure was actually high when the baby passed, or when we found out the baby had passed. It was the first time I actually felt normal was when I started taking adaptogenic herbs and CBD oil. And so what you eat and how you exercise absolutely helps your body handle and adapt to stress. Obviously, we were not in a position that we could exercise. Between my husband's injuries, he hasn't exercised. I had miscarried and lost a lot of blood, so I actually couldn't work out for about 6 to 8 weeks after, and then I immediately became pregnant again. So first trimester awesomeness happening over here. But we knew exactly what would help us through, and we would have been exercising if we could have. So unless your trial somehow knocks you out physically, get your workout in, because that will help you, and try to stay on track as much as you can. We had neighbors and friends and coaches feeding us for 3 weeks, and it absolutely saved us in our time of need. But you could definitely tell the difference in how you feel mentally just from the food you eat. So being aware and trying extra hard is going to help your body handle that stress. What I did to hit my non-negotiables is I made groups that would help me get through. Okay. So I knew that me struggling and wanting to stay in bed all day and not getting dressed was not going to help me mentally. That was not going to help me feel better and be productive. So I made groups that had to do with makeup. Okay. So I made free groups that had live tutorials every single day. So I had to get ready every single day. And that absolutely helped me manage any sort of depression. Like my midwife was like, you need to be very, very diligent and watching your hormones. The hormone adjustment, especially after miscarriage, is very brutal. You can expect, depression and all that. And she was very clear with my husband what to watch for, and I never got it. And I very much attribute that to doing stuff I didn't want to do, but I made it so I had to do it by making groups around that. So whatever you're struggling with, make a group that has to do with it, so it forces you to feel better, essentially. And something else I want to mention, a lot of people get in their own heads and they think, oh, but I'm pregnant and I'm sitting on the couch and I feel like poop and I can't eat on plan because all it sounds good is cereal. I can't do this. I can't help people. Like, I'm a fraud. No, you're not. You're pregnant, or whatever else is happening. You're not a fraud. Okay. Just because you can't do something doesn't mean you can't help others. Okay. So for the last 4 months, I have not been consistent with working out or eating correctly because of what has happened. And I've had no problem hitting my non-negotiables because I can still help support others in their journey, even though I can't do mine fully. Does that make sense? Okay, so don't ever fall into the trap of, I feel like a fraud. You do what you can as best you can, and you help support others along the way. Okay, step 2 is personal development. So guess what suffers the most when your life is hard? It's going to be your mindset. It's going to instantly go to what is wrong. Everything that's wrong, it's going to try and go down the rabbit hole of just looking for the negatives. And you have to be very diligent in keeping your mindset in check, especially during times of trial. And I would suggest finding books that speak directly to you and your situation. So we were reading Brene Brown books and stuff that had to do with shame and all of that, because that's a huge trigger for PTSD, we learned from trauma counseling. And so it also, she's very obviously like known for her vulnerability thing. And that was something that I'll talk about later, is I shared my story completely. And so I would suggest finding personal development books that speak to you and your trial specifically. And then share your takeaways from what you're reading as you share your story. So use personal development to give you inspiration for the posts you need to do to keep your business moving forward. So I loved this quote by Grant Cardone, because I think it's, who doesn't love Grant Cardone? He's like the best. Your excuses might be legit, but they won't improve your life. So as you're going through a trial, yes, it's a trial, but it can also be an excuse to not do things that you know will improve your situation. Okay, so far, there's no way that the vitals aren't going to help you through your trial, right? So far, this is stuff that will actually help you improve and work through your trial faster than if you didn't do it. Step 3, I prefer to say attract, connect, invite. I think invite just kind of has an icky vibe because it sounds salesy, even though we know that our company is like really good at not doing that. I just prefer attract, connect, invite. And the first step of this is to attract and connect by sharing your story. So be transparent. I saw this by Brandy Botts on her Insta stories one day, and it said, be transparent in everything you do. Transparency cultivates trust and true relationships built on a solid foundation. Okay, this is like my jam. If you had to pick something that I do, vulnerability. I would rather be vulnerable all day long and attract people to me than have to go and like send invites. I will never do cold invites, but like invites, just kind of bleh. Like I would rather attract people and easily build a relationship with them and then invite them versus like being a perfectionist or trying to look perfect. That I've noticed does not ever work. So I promise you that as you share your story, you'll build a following and you'll build that trust, because we all go through trials. So sometimes trials are very personal and they're hard to share. And for me personally, I couldn't share a lot about what we were going through until the case was cleared. And that was a month later. And so I had to share my story. So I couldn't give details about the incident, but I could share my version and how it impacted me. And so these are some examples of the posts that I shared. So the first one it's actually on the bottom. I just got a call that no officer's wife wants. Luckily, he's alive, just injured. An officer is on the way to pick me up right now. Please pray. And then I just did a little update later that night after I had more info. And then I just honestly, my non-negotiables was Success Club 10 and posting at least once a day. So I literally just shared my story as I was going through it. And I honestly feel like trials have a way of making you have clarity, especially if you're grounded in something, whether that's religion or just positivity in general. I feel like it provides a source of clarity as long as your mindset is in the correct spot. And that's why personal development is huge. But I was able to write posts like nothing. It was so easy for me. It was actually very therapeutic. And my trauma counselor was like, you just keep doing that, because that's actually a huge way to avoid PTSD, is to actually have a huge social support. So for me, it was a way to get out all of my feelings, as well as relate to others, because we all go through trials, and maybe you won't understand my trial specifically. You're going to relate in some way. And so when you share the hard times, you're building that trust for people to say, oh my gosh, she's so real and genuine. And they're going to feel more easily able to reach out to you when they feel like they need something. Okay. Step 2 of Attract, Connect, Invite is show them how living this way has helped you, and then invite them to join you. Okay. So I did posts about how the decision to become a coach helped us through this time to get back to this. And like I said, I did posts, or I did groups that had to do with helping me get through my trial. And I just invited from those types of things. And my business, I don't know if people just felt bad for me, but it didn't suffer in those months. And I just had to get extremely intentional. I'm not going to say it was easy. I had no desire to form groups. I had no desire to post in groups, but I got very intentional. So when I did work, I was working very minimally. And so I was very strategic in how I posted and how I marketed for these things. And I also utilized my assistant a ton. Okay. So an assistant is something you don't wait until you can afford. In my opinion, you invest in an assistant so that you can afford an assistant. Okay. It'll force you to be able to afford them. But I had my assistant take on a lot of responsibilities. She was basically doing my power hour for me every single day. So I just had to show up and do the important things like the posts and the call to actions and my groups. She even scheduled from past groups I've done posts for me in my current challenge group. So I didn't even have to worry about that. So the main thing I want you to know when you're sharing your story and you're inviting people is you've got to be a source of inspiration and hope for people to get through their trials. They do not have to be the same trials. They just have to look at you as a source of hope and inspiration. So if you're angry and you're very pissed, which I had some posts where I was a little sassy and frassy, that's okay, but you have to have some sort of inspiration to it. There has to be enough hope and light that people aren't like, oh, the black hole of Jaylin again. Like, they will block you so fast if all you're doing is being a victim and complaining about your life. So you have to find the positive, the silver lining. You have to look for the tender mercies. And I'm a firm believer that in every trial there are blessings and tender mercies. And sometimes you have to dig really hard to find them, but they are there. And so I would really, really encourage you to like soul search mega hard during your trial for those blessings to help you share your story. Okay. So if you're not in a place to find those, it's not your time to share it. So you're going to need to do some mega extra PD so that you don't go MIA from your social media, so that you can share your story. And there was something else I'm going to share about that. Just be real. And trust that people want to know your stories. People love to be voyeurs. So give them access to your life. Okay, so step 4 is recognition. So a little spin on this for how it applies in our lives is to recognize all the good and the bad situations. So these are all different scenarios of our story. This one had to do with, I was literally sitting at the police station working while my husband had his investigation interviews. So I was recognizing the freedom and the flexibility that the company was providing. And I cannot tell you how much I took that for granted. Like, we thought we understood that and thought it was amazing, but we didn't really fully get it until my life needed to revolve around his, until I wanted to be at all of his appointments and all of his interviews, and I wanted to be with him at all times, and I could. I didn't have to ask a boss. I didn't have to get paid time off. I didn't have to use vacation time. I didn't have to get unpaid leave. I didn't have to do any of that. I simply adjusted my schedule to fit whatever his schedule was. So talking and recognizing how the business provides freedom and flexibility. And then this one was about on our way to leadership. And the blessing it was for us to actually get away. Like I told you, we suffered from extreme paranoia for quite a bit and didn't want to leave our house. Like, our house was like our safe zone. I am not an introvert in any way. Like, I'm major extrovert. I love to get out of the house. I was not. I turned really like cooped up, and my husband was the same way. So getting to leadership actually forced us out of our comfort zone and made us like kind of resume normal life. And it was really, really good for us. It was one of the best times in the past few months that we've had, because we were able to start that healing process. And so we were recognizing the trips and all of the extra things that this company can provide during the hard times. This was at leadership. My husband was actually doing hammer and chisel when he was in his incident, and he cussed Autumn's name every freaking day he had to do pistol squats, because they're like the worst thing ever. But guess what move he had to do every single day to get off the couch with his broken leg? He had to do pistol squats because he couldn't put any pressure on his leg. You guys, my dog is going crazy. That's my dog playing with a water bottle. So, Coda, stop it. Sid, get him. So, that was a post recognizing how the lifestyle benefited and blessed us during the trial. And then this was a post about the coaching and how the community blessed our lives. Oh my gosh. Okay, so how the community and the coaching actually blessed our lives. We had more support than you would know. There were a ton of tender mercies, and the timing was not coincidental. These flowers specifically, calla lilies are my favorite. I hadn't told either of these coaches. And it was the day my husband saw his body cam footage, and it was very evident that he was protected. And we started to realize that what I believe happened was my baby was his guardian angel. And it was just for me to identify one of his guardian angels. And when my husband was hit, the first time, all he could see was the color white. Instead of blacking out, all he could see was the color white. And so we firmly believe he was protected and guarded that day. And as soon as the threat was turned away from him and turned onto his backup officer, his vision instantly came back. And we had just gotten home from that, where he saw the body cam footage, and where we had this discussion that like there was no doubt he was protected. And I had a flower delivery of white flowers, and calla lilies are my favorite. And 20 minutes later, I got another knock on the door from another coach who sent flowers, and they were white calla lilies. And so for me, I was like, holy crap, like there were tender mercies all over the place. And so I just was able to see clearly how much this business seriously supported and like really lifted us up during our times of crap. And so that is the 4 vital behaviors and how they actually help you through a trial rather than causing more work. And so I want you to just read these really quickly, and then we can answer any questions if you have any. But it says, you have to stop thinking you'll be stuck in your situation forever. We feel like our hearts will never heal or will never get out of this impossible struggle. Don't confuse a season for a lifetime. Even your trials have an expiration date. You will grow, life will change, things will work out. So lean into the vitals because they will help you through the hard. Don't walk away from something that can change your life forever for something that is temporary. So I hope that helps you guys. Like, I really, like, this business is solid. Like, I don't know how else to explain. Like, do not walk away. You've got to lean in because there's not anything here that is going to hurt you more when you're suffering and you're in a trial. You have to lean in, and you've got to just trust that the vitals are going to help you through life as well.
Okay. Wow. Like, you made me tear up, just to let you know. And that was incredible because I love how these simple 4 things can just totally be in your everyday life. Like, I loved your examples. I am a visual person, but I'm not a computer person. Does that make sense? Like, so seeing your visuals were very like, oh, those were awesome. So I know you said it, I don't know if this helps, but it really did. It was awesome. One thing, you said a lot of things. I took a lot of notes, but one thing that really stood out to me was that, and you just said it very like, just sometimes when you say things like just randomly, I don't know if you meant to say it or if it was planned, but that you just really have to soul search for the blessings in your trials. And if you cannot find them, it's your job to do more personal development. And I love how you shared like that you're sharing your story, because you couldn't really share your husband's story in the sense of, you know, from a different perspective because of all the legal, you know, kind of stuff. But I love how you shared your story, and then how you recognized all the good in a situation and actually was kind of business minded in it. Do you know what I mean? Like when you were the last kind of slides that you showed. So, oh my gosh, mind blown. And I love your tender heart. I just want to tell you that. I know that you've gone through so much in the last 6 months, and for you to be able to share that with us and to keep it so vulnerable and real is why you're successful, Jalen. Like it really is. So we so appreciate you. And okay, anyone have a comment? Anyone have questions? If not, I'm going to start calling on some people. Just kidding. Anyone have anything they'd like to say or anything? Anyone at all? Denise, I'm going to make you talk. Denise is like, Denise.
I'm literally unmuting myself right now. So you
Okay,
can
good.
mind.
Good.
That was amazing. That was perfect. And I actually needed this call at this very moment in my life, because I'm suffering with a cancer scare. And I struggle daily checking into my challenge groups and posting on social media and sharing my workouts, because I feel like shit. And my husband's a police officer. So everything you shared tonight hit me to the core, you know, and I've learned so much. And I've been in this business 4 years now, and I just hit 3-star diamond, and I've had my best year during my struggle.
Right? Me too.
It's amazing, you know. So I'm going to take a page out of your book and just share anyway.
Oh, yeah. That like made me get goosebumps right there, Jalen. See that right there? Like, oh my gosh. It's hard. And one of the hardest things is sometimes sharing, just because it's so like hard. But like you said, like going online and like sharing parts of your story was kind of like therapeutic. Like that's what I try to look at it, instead of looking at it like, oh, I have to post. I can't believe I have to post about this. Don't have to post about it. Like post what is true to you, and then just think before you push send. If it can you can just make something more positive, or if you can just say one thing that maybe makes it related to business. Do you know what I mean? Like just flip one sentence, because I think that that's an incredible part of this business, is that they have to know, like, and trust you, and they have to come to your page and feel like they're sitting next to you in your room in order to understand you. Do you know what I mean? Like they have to be like the one thing that people say to me that is the best compliment ever, and I'm sure you feel this way too, is like, oh my God, you're the same person in real life. And I'm like, yeah, I am. like I am really. Like my coaches will be like, wow, like you're like actually and I'm like, did you think I was going to be someone different? Like, I didn't know what to expect. And I think that that's what you need to be, is just like, if you're sad, share it and talk about it. If you're, you know what I mean? But what Jalen said is like, of course she was angry. Of course she was pissed off. Of course she was mad, but she wasn't like spewing hatred all over there. She was really, you know, and, you know, she's obviously religious, and I think she's LDS, but she just like, you know, she was using, you know, God and like her faith to like help her get through and share and connect with those people in her life, whatever's, you know, good for you in your life at the time. But anyhow, I just wanted to go ahead.
I was going to say that was something I forgot to mention. When you're sharing your story, treat it like a journal. Like I seriously went back and was reading. I'm like, oh my gosh, I need to print this off. Like,
no, you really do. And I
didn't realize it at the time.
Yeah. Cause I told you that, like, remember last week I was like, you have like a gift. Like I would be like, and I'm going to be honest with you, I don't follow many coaches, because I'm just like, I get into the comparing mode, and then I start to go, oh my God, they're doing this and I'm doing this and I'm doing that. Like, that's just my personality. So I know my limits, but like, I literally went to your page because I was like, okay, I want her to do team call. I'm going to ask her to do team call. And I literally got sucked in. I was like, when's the next chapter coming out? Like, come on, like, come on. And I was like scrolling, and I was going back to your page each day, because I was like, she said something's happening tomorrow. Like, I got to read this. But it was me wanting to root. I wanted to root for you. Like, I wanted to root for you. Like, I was there for you. Like, I was in it with you. Like, I was your friend. Do you know what I mean? And so that's what I think sharing that allows you to do is to be like a normal person with issues that are going through, you know. So, and this is perfect because I think majority of people that go through tough times take a step back. Would you agree with that? Would you agree with that? Yeah. And the majority of people, and instead of you said like, you know, lean into these things, lean in and see what you can use for your business. But thank you so much. I promise you this will get watched and rewatched, and our coaches are going to watch it. A bunch of people will watch the recording tomorrow morning. I cannot to wait to share with you on next week, but we did a little exchange. But I really appreciate your time. I know you don't feel very good, and you're, you know, 4 kids and going through all of this, but this just shows how amazing this business can be. So you're just another blessing in Beachbody, and you're just another success story, and you know, that I love to hear about. And you're just a nice person. So thanks for being nice.
You're nice. You're awesome.
And anyone else have anything else before we get off? Okay. So I'll let you guys go, and you guys have an awesome night. Bye.